The string lights were glowing. Everyone was laughing, glasses clinking for Grandma's 80th, when my brother suddenly stood up, smirk sharp as a knife. Right there in the backyard, in front of 30 relatives, Hayes looked straight at me and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "This family is honestly embarrassed to share a last name with you." Mom nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world. Dad gave that little half smile he always does when he agrees, but doesn't want to say it. I just sat there, champagne flute halfway to my lips, feeling the air freeze around me. Then Grandma, 80 years old, set her glass down with the slowest, most deliberate clink I've ever heard. She rose from her chair, looked Hayes dead in the eye, and dropped one single sentence that turned his face ghost white in less than a second. Everyone thought that was the end of the night. It wasn't even the beginning. Hi, I'm Sage Harper. And what happened in the hours, weeks, and months after that one sentence completely shattered everything I thought I knew about my own family. If you've ever been treated like you don't belong in your own bloodline, smash the like button right now so I know I'm not the only one. And stick around because the real payback is just getting started. Growing up in the Harper house, I learned very early that being the older child didn't mean much when the younger one was the only son. From the moment Hayes Harper came home from the hospital, everything tilted in his direction. Mom would carry him around like he was made of glass, whispering over and over that he was the one who would keep the family name strong. Dad didn't say it as often, but every time he looked at my brother, his eyes had this proud shine that never once landed on me. I tried though. In elementary school, I brought home straight A report cards. Mom pinned Hayes's finger painting on the fridge instead. Middle school honor roll. Dad took Hayes to a Panthers game as celebration. High school valedictorian speech. They missed it because Hayes had a travel baseball tournament the same weekend. I stopped expecting applause and started expecting excuses. By the time I left for college, the pattern was set in stone. I put myself through UNC Charlotte on scholarships and night jobs, graduated summa cum laude with a degree in finance, and landed a junior analyst role at one of the biggest banks downtown, 3 promotions in 6 years. At 34, I'm now a senior financial analyst pulling low 6 figures plus bonus, managing portfolios most people my age only dream about. My coworkers respect me. My boss trusts me with multi-million-dollar decisions. My performance reviews are glowing. But none of that ever made it back to the family dinner table. Whenever I visited Raleigh, Mom's first question was always, "So, when are you going to get a real job?" To her, real meant working for Harper Coastal Developments, the company Grandma Evelyn started in the 70s and turned into a multi-state empire. Dad would nod along and add, "Hayes closed 3 deals last quarter." Never mind that Hayes at 29 mostly golfs with clients and lets the actual sales team do the work. Never mind that the commissions he brags about are split 6 ways before he sees a dime. In their eyes, he's the future. I'm just the daughter who sits at a desk pushing numbers. Hayes never missed a chance to remind me. Family cookouts, Christmas morning, even Grandma's smaller birthdays. He'd find a way to slide in some comment about how I chose the boring path or how the company would have been mine if I'd cared about family legacy. Mom and Dad ate it up every time. They'd laugh, ruffle his hair, tell him he was absolutely right. The only 2 people who ever saw through the act were Grandma Evelyn and my cousin Haley Carter. Grandma Evelyn built the company from nothing after Grandpa died young. She never cared that I wasn't a boy. She cared that I could read a balance sheet before I was 12 and that I asked questions about cap rates while Hayes was still asking for extra dessert. She'd pull me aside at gatherings, slip me books on real estate finance, tell me quietly, "Brains and grit, Sage, that's what lasts." Haley, 2 years younger and the daughter of Mom's sister, grew up watching the same show from the sidelines. She was the only one who texted me after every ignored achievement with actual congratulations instead of silence. We became each other's safe space, the only branch of the family where I didn't have to pretend to be smaller than I was. For years, I told myself the favoritism didn't matter. I had my career, my apartment in Charlotte, my own life 3 hours away. I could handle the digs. The eye rolls, the way they talked about Hayes, like he was already wearing Grandma's crown. I showed up when I was supposed to, smiled when I was supposed to, and went home to a job that actually valued me. But Grandma's 80th birthday was different. She made it clear this was the last big party she'd host at the house, and everyone knew what that usually meant in families like ours. 6 weeks before the party, a thick cream envelope showed up in my mailbox with Grandma Evelyn's unmistakable handwriting on the front. Inside was a handwritten invitation on heavy cardstock, her 80th birthday celebration, backyard at the Raleigh house. No gifts, just family. At the bottom, she had added in her spidery ink, likely the last one I'll host here. That single line hit harder than any formal announcement could have. The family group chat exploded the same day. Hayes posted a photo of his invitation with the caption, "Future CEO loading," followed by a crown emoji and a winking face. Within minutes, Mom replied with a string of heart eyes emojis. Dad sent the praying hands one. Aunts and uncles chimed in with "so proud" and "well-deserved." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing a simple "can't wait to celebrate Grandma." It got 0 reactions. 2 days later, Mom texted me privately. The message was short and sharp. "Sage, this party is extremely important to your grandmother. Please don't do anything to embarrass the family." No hello, no explanation, just that. I read it 3 times, thumb hovering over the keyboard, then replied, "Of course," and left it at that. She never answered. Hayes kept the hype train rolling. Every few days, another post, a screenshot of him at the office in front of the big Harper Coastal Developments logo, a throwback photo of him as a kid sitting on Grandma's desk, captions like, "learning from the best and ready to carry the torch." Each one racked up dozens of likes from relatives who never once liked my promotion announcement last year. Then Haley called me on a Thursday night while I was still at the office. She didn't even say hello. "Your brother is insufferable right now." She launched straight in. "He's telling everyone Grandma promised him controlling interest as soon as she turns 80. He's already picking out new office furniture." I laughed, but it came out hollow. Haley lowered her voice. "I'm not joking. I overheard Aunt Linda say Grandma's been at the estate attorney 4 times in the past month." 4, Sage. That's not normal health check stuff. I leaned back in my desk chair, city lights blinking outside the window. For visits in 30 days meant papers were being redone, trusts, wills, corporate bylaws, something big was moving. And Hayes, acting like the crown was already on his head, suddenly felt less like arrogance and more like he actually knew something. The following week, he FaceTimed Mom from the country club holding up a set of new golf clubs. I was at their house dropping off dry cleaning Mom had asked for, and she put him on speaker. "Grandma said I can expense these now," he bragged. "Perks of being next in line." Mom beamed like he'd just cured cancer. Dad walked in, heard the tail end, and clapped Hayes on the shoulder through the phone like he was right there. I stood in the doorway holding hangers and felt invisible all over again. Haley kept feeding me updates. She'd gone over to help Grandma sort old photos and noticed file folders from the lawyer stacked on the dining table. One of them had "Amended Trust 2025" scrawled on the tab in Grandma's handwriting. When Haley casually asked about it, Grandma changed the subject fast and asked her to go make tea. By the time the RSVP deadline hit, the entire family was operating on the assumption that the birthday party was also coronation day for Hayes. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years texted asking if I was okay with everything. One uncle pulled me aside at a cousin's graduation and said, "You know how these things go. Boys carry the name." I smiled, nodded, and excused myself to the bathroom to breathe. I almost didn't go. For 3 straight nights, I stared at flights to anywhere else that weekend. But something, maybe stubbornness, maybe curiosity, made me pack a bag instead. The morning I left Charlotte, Haley sent one last text. "Whatever happens, I've got your back. See you in the backyard." The drive from Charlotte to Raleigh takes exactly 3 hours and 4 minutes when traffic is light. I know because I've done it more times than I can count. That Saturday, I left at noon, windows down, music loud enough to drown out the noise in my head. By the time I turned onto the familiar Oakline Street, my stomach was already in knots. The driveway was packed. Cars lined both sides all the way to the road. I parked 2 blocks away and walked back carrying the small gift bag I'd spent way too long choosing. As soon as the house came into view, I saw Hayes at the front gate, arms spread wide like he owned the place, greeting cousins with back slaps and loud laughs. Dad stood right beside him, one hand on Hayes's shoulder, beaming at every arriving guest as if they were there for his son instead of Grandma. I crossed the lawn and Hayes spotted me. For half a second, his smile faltered. Then he recovered and called out, "Look who finally showed up." A few heads turned. He pulled me into a one-armed hug that felt more like a wrestling move. Then immediately turned to the next car pulling in and shouted, "Uncle Mike." "Parking's around back." Dad gave me a quick nod, barely meeting my eyes, and followed Hayes to direct traffic. Mom was on the front porch arranging welcome drinks on a silver tray. She looked up, saw me, and offered the smallest possible smile. "You're late," she said, even though I wasn't. "Put your gift on the table inside and come help with the ice." No hug. No good to see you. Just instructions. I slipped through the front door and dropped the gift among the pile. The house smelled like lemon polish and barbecue smoke drifting in from the backyard. Childhood memories hit me in waves, running through these halls, hiding under that same dining table during hide-and-seek. Everything looked exactly the same yet completely foreign. Out back, the setup was massive. White tents stretching across half the lawn, long tables draped in navy linen, a rented dance floor already going up near the pool. Caterers in black shirts darted around with trays of shrimp and sliders. A bartender was setting up under the old magnolia tree. String lights were being tested. They flickered on one by one as the sun started its slow drop. Grandma Evelyn sat in her favorite wicker chair beneath the massive oak that's been there longer than the house itself. She wore a simple cream dress and the pearl necklace she saves for special occasions. A light blanket covered her knees. Even though the afternoon was warm, she didn't stand to greet anyone. She just watched. Every single person who walked past leaned down to kiss her cheek or shake her hand. And every single time, her sharp blue eyes took them in like she was cataloging something. I approached slowly. When I reached her, she reached up and pulled me down by the wrist so she could kiss my cheek properly. "There's my girl," she said quietly, voice steady but softer than usual. Her grip was surprisingly strong. She held my hand a second longer than necessary, gave it a small squeeze, then let go and turned to the next cousin in line. Hayes appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. He handed me one and clinked his against it. "To the future," he said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Before I could answer, he was already moving toward a group of second cousins, arm raised in victory, like he'd just won something. Dad found me near the dessert table a few minutes later. He looked tanned and relaxed in his linen shirt, the same uniform he wears to every family event now that he's semi-retired from the company. "Hayes has everything under control," he said, as if that explained why no one had asked me to help with anything. I nodded and took a bite of cheesecake I didn't want. Guests kept arriving. The backyard filled with laughter and overlapping conversations. Someone turned on music, old Motown that Grandma loves, and a few and started swaying by the pool. Kids ran wild chasing fireflies that weren't out yet. Every time the gate opened, I glanced over, half expecting something to feel normal. It never did. By 6:30, the sky had turned that perfect North Carolina orange. The caterers lit the grills. The bartender started pouring heavier. Hayes moved from group to group like a politician working a room, shaking hands, posing for pictures with Grandma, making sure every phone camera caught him right beside her throne. I stayed on the edges, refilling my glass more than I should, watching the whole performance unfold. Dinner was still an hour away. At 7:30 sharp, the caterers rang the antique brass bell hanging from the tent pole, and the crowd began drifting toward the long tables draped in crisp navy linen. I located my place car tucked between Aunt Linda and a second cousin I hadn't seen since high school. Across the head table sat the royal trio, Grandma in the center, Hayes planted firmly on her right, Dad on her left, Mom directly opposite them, glowing like she'd already won the lottery. The grilled peach salads arrived first. Conversation started light. Aunt Linda turned to me with genuine curiosity and asked how work was going in Charlotte. I opened my mouth, ready to mention the 8-figure commercial loan I just closed, when Hayes's voice boomed over the chatter. Speaking of Charlotte, wait until you hear about the Wilmington oceanfront condos I'm heading up. Every head snapped toward him. My sentence evaporated. That became the pattern for the next 2 hours. Every single time I tried to speak, he hijacked the air. A cousin asked what I did on weekends. Hayes immediately launched into the rooftop infinity pool planned for the penthouse level. Someone wondered if city life was expensive. Hayes bragged about pre-selling units before the foundation was even poured. Each interruption was perfectly timed, perfectly loud, perfectly impossible to talk over. By the time the brisket plates arrived, he was standing, glass raised, describing my groundbreaking vision for Harper Tower. Dad kept nodding like a proud bobblehead, throwing in lines like, "That's my son, always 10 moves ahead." Mom actually dabbed the corner of her eye with a napkin when Hayes declared the building would bear the family name for generations. The table applauded. I stared at my untouched cornbread. I finally managed to answer a direct question from Uncle Ray about interest rates. I got 4 words out, "We're seeing a slight," before Hayes cut across again. "Speaking of rates, Grandma, remember when you taught me about leverage on that fishing trip when I was 12? Paid off big time this quarter." Another roar of laughter. Mom reached over and squeezed his forearm like he'd just invented electricity. I set my fork down and stopped trying. Dessert was Grandma's favorite coconut cake. 3 tiers, sparklers on top. While everyone sang an off-key happy birthday, I slipped away from the table and walked to the darkest corner of the pool deck where the string lights barely reached. The water shimmered black and gold. I stood there gripping the railing, trying to keep my breathing even. Haley appeared 30 seconds later, holding 2 flutes of champagne. She pressed one into my hand without asking. "I swear if he says my project one more time, I'm throwing him in the pool myself," she muttered. I let out a shaky laugh and took a long drink. She checked over both shoulders, then dropped her voice to barely above a whisper. "I wasn't going to tell you until after the cake, but I can't watch this anymore. Grandma signed everything last week." I was there helping her sort mail and saw the courier envelope from the law firm, thick, sealed, marked, executed. She told me to put it straight in the safe. "It's done, Sage. Whatever she decided is already law." My heart slammed against my ribs. "You're sure?" Haley nodded, eyes wide. "Positive. And from the way she's been watching Hayes all night. Just brace yourself." We both turned back toward the party. Hayes had taken the microphone from the DJ and was leading another toast, arms slung around Dad's shoulders, declaring the next generation of Harper leadership starts tonight. Phones were up recording. Mom was crying happy tears into her napkin again. I looked at Haley. "How bad is this about to get?" She gave me a small, fierce smile. "For someone at that table, really bad. For you, maybe the best night of your life." The pool house clock glowed 9:20. The sparklers on the 3-tier coconut cake had just fizzled out when the DJ cut the music completely at 9:45 sharp. Hayes grabbed the microphone like he'd been waiting his entire life for this moment. One hand resting possessively on the back of Grandma's chair, champagne raised in the other. He flashed his brightest salesman's smile at the 30 relatives watching him. "Grandma, from all of us tonight, thank you for believing in the next generation and trusting us with everything you built from nothing." Polite applause rippled across the tables. Then he pivoted his entire body toward me, the smile twisting into something cold and sharp. "Because let's be real," he said, voice carrying over every speaker in the yard. "This family is honestly embarrassed to even share a last name with you." Dead silence. Mom nodded like he delivered the sermon of the year. Dad's lips curled into that smug half-grin that meant full approval. A few cousins dropped their eyes to their plates. Someone's glass froze halfway to their mouth. I felt the words hit me like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I just stared straight back at him. Grandma Evelyn placed her flute on the table with a slow, crystal-clear clink that somehow silenced the crickets themselves. She rose from her chair, no cane, no help, 80 years old and taller in that moment than anyone else in the yard. The string lights caught the pearls at her throat and made them burn like ice. She looked directly at Hayes and spoke, calm, low, and final. "If this family is ashamed of Sage, then it clearly has no need for you either, Hayes." You could have heard a pin land on the grass. His face went chalk white. Mom's hand flew to her chest. Dad's champagne slipped from his fingers and shattered against the stone patio. Amber liquid spreading like blood. Grandma didn't blink. "Last Tuesday, I executed the final amendments to the Living Trust and the corporate governance documents. Effective at the close of business yesterday, 72% of Harper Coastal Development's full controlling interest is now owned by Sage Harper. The Raleigh house, the lake house, the beach condo, and every stick of furniture in them are hers outright. Hayes Harper receives a 3% non-voting stake and nothing more. Jennifer and Richard Harper are removed from the board of directors and stripped of all voting privileges permanently. The filings are recorded with the state. The transfers are irrevocable." A woman at the far table actually gasped out loud. Another cousin's phone slipped from her hand and clattered to the ground. Hayes tried to laugh. It came out strangled. "Grandma, come on. This is a prank, right? We talked about this for years." "You talked," she cut in, voice still quiet, still deadly. "I listened and I chose." Mom shot to her feet, chair toppling behind her. "Mother, you can't be serious. Hayes is your only grandson. He just announced to 30 witnesses that his sister embarrasses the bloodline," Grandma said without raising her voice. "Sit down, Jennifer." Dad's face turned purple. "This will destroy the company. The investors. The company will be in the hands of the one person who never once used my name as a shortcut," Grandma replied. "It will be just fine." She turned to the table, eyes sweeping every frozen face. "I built Harper Coastal with calloused hands and sleepless nights while some of you were still in diapers. I have watched who worked, who learned, who respected what this family stands for, and who spent decades coasting on reputation alone. Tonight made the last piece crystal clear." Hayes took a stumbling step forward, hands out like he could physically grab the words back. "Grandma, please, I didn't mean." "You meant every word," she said. "And now you live with them." Then she turned to me, and for the first time all evening, her expression softened completely. "Sage, the new access codes and the master keyring are in the safe. The board is notified and expecting you Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Congratulations, you earned it." I couldn't find air. All I managed was a nod. Tears burning, but refusing to fall. Hayes opened his mouth again. Nothing came out. Mom started crying, loud, messy sobs. Dad just stared at the broken glass at his feet like he didn't recognize the backyard anymore. Grandma sat back down, smoothed her skirt, and lifted her champagne again. She took a slow sip while the entire party stayed locked in stunned, breathless silence. The pool house clock flipped to 9:51. The night still had a long way to go. 6 months later, the dust had settled into something that looked a lot like peace, at least for me. The first Monday after the party, I walked into the headquarters of Harper Coastal Developments wearing the same navy suit I wore to closings at the bank. The board greeted me with handshakes instead of questions. By Wednesday, Hayes's office was cleared out. By Friday, his name was off the website and his company car was repossessed. The official reason was restructuring, but everyone knew the truth. He lasted exactly 3 weeks trying to find another job in real estate. No one in the Carolinas would touch him. Word travels fast when you've publicly insulted the new majority owner. The last I heard, he was selling used cars at a dealership off I-40, wearing a cheap polo with someone else's logo on it. Mom and Dad discovered the hard way that Grandma's amended trust triggered a massive gift tax bill the moment the transfer went through. 7 figures they never expected to owe. They put the Raleigh house on the market the following month, took a second mortgage on the beach condo, and still had to liquidate half of Dad's retirement to cover the rest. The backyard, where everything exploded, now has a for sale sign stabbed into the front lawn. Mom sent me photos of the listing like nothing had happened. I never replied. I moved Grandma into the spare wing of my Charlotte condo the week after Thanksgiving. She sold most of her furniture, kept her books and her pearls, and told me she'd never slept better than in the quiet of a home where no one was performing for her. We drink coffee on the balcony every morning and talk about cap rates and interest rates like we used to when I was 12. She still beats me at gin rummy. The messages started almost immediately. First from Mom, long tear-soaked voice notes about how I was destroying the family. Then Dad, angry emails about lawsuits and what people would think. I archived everything without answering. Then came the cousins, the aunts, the guilt trips disguised as concern. I blocked numbers one by one until my phone finally went quiet. The very last message came from Hayes on a random Tuesday in March. I was in the middle of a board call when the text popped up from an unfamiliar number. Sage, I'm sorry. I was drunk and stupid that night. We're blood. You can't just throw your only brother away like this. I have nothing left. Please call me. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed one line and hit send. You threw yourself away the second you decided disrespect was the same as strength. Goodbye, Hayes. I blocked the number, deleted the thread, and went back to the call like nothing had happened. Some people think cutting off family makes you cold. I used to worry about that too. But 6 months in, I wake up lighter every single day. My condo is calm. My company is profitable. Grandma laughs more in a week now than she did in the previous decade. Haley comes over every Sunday, and we cook dinner without anyone interrupting to tell us how someone else does it better. I still carry the Harper name, but now I carry it on my own terms. No more shrinking. No more apologizing for taking up space. No more pretending favoritism is love. Sometimes blood isn't thicker than respect. Sometimes walking away isn't losing a family. It's finally finding yourself. And for the first time in 34 years, I am exactly where I'm supposed to be.